Quick producer's note, Lazarus didn't start recording initially, and on the recording from Skype, he cuts out due to some latency while quoting a tweet. So I'll be jumping in then to read what got jumbled up. Also, later on, Luci says World War III when he meant to say World War II, just to avoid any confusion. Enjoy the episode.
Public space travel. Public space travel. And so on and so on.
I can't help but believe that in the future we'll see throughout the world an increasing trend toward the next logical step.
We'll achieve full communism.
Public space travel. Public space travel. And so on and so on.
All right. All right, welcome to the Public Space Travel Podcast. Welcome to the Public Space Travel Podcast. I'm Lazarus Wolf. With me, we almost have a full house. We're expecting a full house. We got Marks and Luci and Lichen, and soon, hopefully, Hunty as well. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. I like how you had the same pattern even when you did it the second time. Like the first time you screwed up, you did the same.
My melody? Yeah. We are a podcast dedicated to social political critique, comedy education, and today we're going to talk about something that actually happened today, which it is, as we're recording this, it's Monday, January 20th, 2020. Some shit went down, but didn't really go down, but went down in Virginia today with thousands of peaceful protesters against some gun control that was also kind of founded in some conspiracy theories that have been circumventing the internet through memes and other such. So we're going to talk about that today, especially relevant because it's MLK Day, what that means for that as well. And also maybe what the president might have for having these militias and other gun advocacy groups, given the tumultuous times of the 2020s. But, well, I guess, first of all, got to do the administrative stuff. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to support us and buy us a cup of coffee that we each take a sip of collectively before it runs out, you can sign up for $5 a month in a pledge of solidarity at patreon.com/publicspacetravel. Help support us in doing what we do here and helping us continue to do that. So, saw today on Twitter the FBI, yes, the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, posted a tweet out today saying, quote, "Today, the FBI honors the life and work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A quote from Dr. King is etched in the stone at the FBI Academy Reflection Garden in Quantico as a reminder to all students and FBI employees that, quote, the time is always right."
The Martin Luther King Jr. quote is the quote, "The time is always right to do what is right." Then they have a hashtag MLK Day and a picture of the etching that you can't see very well because it's dark when they took the photo.
And so on and so on.
They've been under a lot of flack for doing that. And people have been pointing to the, I don't know if you're all familiar with the Martin Luther King suicide letter. That's the quote unquote suicide letter. The FBI had sent to him kind of near the end of his life that, as Martin Luther King had interpreted, was an encouragement to either commit suicide, or some have also speculated to not take the Nobel Peace Prize or step down. But there's just something very kind of dark about that. But maybe that's with the society kind of being, what was the term that we had discussed before, where kind of co-ops the society, capitalism, but just society, capitalism co-ops different things and reinterprets it for different goals and whitewashes it.
Yeah, or takes the contradiction and instead of just acknowledging the both and tries to turn it into a truth when it's convenient. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's something that kind of goes on. I don't think a lot of people have kind of heard about that.
The U.S. government loves opposition.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Go out and buy your Malcolm X
totally cool
stamps, postal stamps today.
Well, and it's interesting that we don't always talk about how much, like how unpopular MLK was. Like sometimes I still hear like in elementary school classrooms, just like the idea of everyone being treated equally, like almost turning his teachings into like colorblindness, which isn't even what he stands for, but like not acknowledging the violence against MLK and all of the other people working with him. So I get, and like I don't know if whitewashing is the term, or maybe it is, but just trying to reduce it into this like, this was a person who said everyone should be friends, and there's like no complexity with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I definitely see that as well. I think they don't like to talk about MLK's like push for economic equality, specifically like his critiques of capitalism. And I especially don't see the white moderates, like, you know, in the letter to the Birmingham jail, he specifically targets white moderates in the sense of saying like, those are actually the people, for example, like he fears the most, rather than the openly racist. The white moderates are the ones who are unwilling to kind of take direct action, and instead are just kind of like,
Yeah.
So
And neutrality.
not a lot has changed since the.
I know. Yeah.
All right, so today in Virginia, there was a reaction to some new gun laws, but also it was kind of founded on some, it was founded on, to clarify, it was founded on some internet conspiracy theories. But to give everybody the background, if you're not aware, Democrats in Virginia took control of both the House and the Senate as of this year, and this was like the first time in generations. The Virginia Senate also passed through last week a series of gun control bills. So SB 70 was a mandatory background checks for any transfers of firearms, including private sales. SB 69 was you can only purchase one handgun every 30 days. And SB 35 was control of firearms by localities and permitted events. So basically, like, the local government could be like, nah, you can't bring firearms here. So there was kind of the protests against these gun control measures. However, what really brought in thousands of members of different militias across the nation, as well as some alt-right figures, including Alex Jones in a armored vehicle, was an internet conspiracy theory that the Virginia governor, Ralph Northam, was supposedly planning to, quote, shut off power, internet, and phones, then utilize the National Guard to take away people's guns, which was found to originate from a far-right white supremacist talk show host, Hal Turner, which he had said, he kind of created this on December 13th, 2019 on his talk show. It was, quote, this is Hal Turner speaking, quote, the governor of Virginia has allegedly ordered a small cadre of staffers to begin the process of determining how to cut off electricity, telephones, faxes, cellular phones, and data, that's in all caps for some reason, as well as the internet in areas where he plans to send Virginia National Guard troops to forcibly seize guns when the Democrat legislature convenes in January. He goes on to talk about SB 64, which it was weird, on his site, he had this very longer drawn out version of what you'll see on the actual Virginia government thing for the SB 64. But basically it's about paramilitary activities. Basically was saying if you're a member of paramilitaries, you could receive you basically be breaking the law, whatnot. And then Turner goes on through the rest of that post back in December of last year to say this is something to prepare for. It's going to be martial law. We have to go, here's links to go buy body armor. This is what you have to do to buy heat sources and radio communication, etc. And kind of in the combination of various events that led to essentially the Virginia, I think it was a amalgam of different events. The big ones being that 3 members of the neo-Nazi group, The Base, were arrested last Thursday with weapons and plans for Monday's event. So there's that. And then also, number 2, nationwide, there was promises by various militia groups to be bussed in, to basically be present. And some of these by the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which are, posted that these are various hate groups. Ones that responded were Oath Keepers and the 3%ers. Ironically, the NRA actually saw this event as too divisive, and they actually recommended people to go to a different event called like a lobby day thing or something that was like separate and far, at a different location. As of today, and I last checked this at like 5 p.m., thousands of armed supporters, militia members, and alt-right personality, Alex Jones in an armored vehicle, were peacefully present at the Virginia Capitol. And according to the Virginia Capitol Twitter account, it was an estimated 22,000 people that were there in total protesting. Yeah.
That's glad crazy. It came back to Alex Jones in an armored vehicle because I just couldn't get that out of my head for that entire time. That sounds in character.
Yeah, this isn't the first time he's come to events in an armored vehicle. Like when it was like a Hillary thing, he went to one and it was like, I don't know, doing his stuff there against them. But Alex Jones, and I took this off of various videos off of the InfoWars site that was posted today. He was making claims about how they couldn't find any anti-gun or Antifa protesters there. So he states that he was told that Antifa had gone undercover to stealthily carry out hits on them and others.
No, that means you guys won, so you guys can just go home now. Yay, they're not here or something.
Right. This shit is, I think, just another example of this alt-right body that has a platform on the internet and utilizes it. Oh, hey!
Oh my goodness!
I'm so sorry I'm late. Apologies.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Did you hear any of that?
Alt-right. Yep. Nope. Very little.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to interrupt. I want to be here. So.
Oh, wow.
Yay! It's Hunty.
Yay!
Are you actually episoding or?
Yeah, we are.
Then I fucked up real bad.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
What do y'all think about this? And in particular, like how it's happening on MLK Day, number one, and two, how this kind of, do you think that this sets the precedent for future, I guess you'd say, militia protests? Or, it's not, yeah, go ahead.
Well, definitely that. Like, I was thinking that, like, because I only briefly followed what was happening, and like just seeing how kind of like how okay it was for these people to be out in the streets with guns. Like there's a video I saw where there was like a woman on her bike, and she kind of like was riding, and then you just see like a parade of these men walking with their rifles, and she kind of like stops and just like stares for a while, and then like quickly turns around, like the kind of thing you have to do on your bike where you have to actually lift your bike to turn it around the other direction. And like I was like, that's just like not right. Like, why are you seeing people out on the streets with guns? And it's just like, it's okay and it's fine and whatever. But I also was thinking that's probably going to be like normal. That's I guess unless something else happens. And especially because they have stickers where they're like guns save lives.
Oh yeah.
Like when you get to that point mentally, I feel like that's not something that you can just say, hey, you can't have a rally or you can't have a parade anymore, because that's probably going to make them more upset and create more drama. Like I was just thinking, this can't get better. That was what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Is that
cannot get better?
Cannot.
Is that kind of like the response that you would think that they kind of want is like, oh shit, okay, I'm just gonna go this way now.
That's a really good question.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting topic, even like the smallest things that will inflame people, talking about gun control. Like this is a horrible story, but my partner's mom teaches in rural Idaho, and she teaches middle school, and they were doing Socratic circles where they like get in groups in their English class, talk about thesis statements. One of the students got to pick the thesis statements, and the premise was school shootings are a problem in the US. What can we do? And a student took a picture, posted it on Facebook, and she got in trouble with her principal and vice principal for promoting liberal topics in her classroom. They weren't even talking about gun control. Like, literally the premise that school shootings are a problem triggered this like incredible parent reaction.
And that those two words even go together, right?
Yeah.
That those two words, school and shooting, even go together.
Yeah.
Like, that could even just school shooting. You can just leave it at that. Like, everybody should be able to come up with, oh yeah, no, that's real fucked up.
Right. Like, regardless of what your opinions are, which like you shouldn't be neutral about it, but like if that can't even be accepted as a problem, like I am so depressed by that. Like, I don't know.
Because the other thing is like, I feel like with the internet, you get information faster, right? And I remember like there was World War III and there was the Holocaust, and then like it was like years before anyone I think heard any mention of Holocaust deniers, and you're like, wait, that's a thing? And then now it's like there was like a shooting on live TV, and everybody knew it was a shooting, and everybody saw it, and almost instantly there's people saying it's fake, or people like not willing to admit that happened or face that reality. And it's like, I don't understand, huh?
Do you mean like Columbine, like the very like that first time that we're kind of seeing that happen in real time, or?
I guess like I don't know if Columbine was pre-Twitter. I think I'm talking like post-Twitter, like this Twitter world where like the information is right there, and you think that people are able to access the information and the facts more instantly, but instead seem to be accessing less facts, either voluntarily or something.
Well, like I think that for me, that first time when I'm seeing a school shooting happen in like real time was Columbine. Like for me, I can, it is visceral for me to remember those images, but I truly sort of that instance goes hand in hand with these sort of militia movements where like we have to protect our guns, and automatically for me that is to the detriment of children. Do you know, I mean, like for me, I can't separate those two things, nor do I feel like I should. No one needs those weapons.
Right.
Those never needed to be in the hands of a child who is clearly has other things going on. But no, it's not a mental health issue. It is a mental health issue. It isn't only a mental health issue. It is an issue with magazine size and gender prevalence of guns in hands of children.
That's kind of crazy because I actually I had forgotten about Columbine, to be honest. Like, because I think I was in middle school around that time. I don't remember exactly. All those years kind of get fuzzy to me. But the thing I struggle with is I can't figure out like why there's such a intense need for this, like we have to protect our guns or our right to have guns, especially these like overpowered killing machines. I'm a civilian. Like the most danger that I get into is driving my truck on the freeway. So therefore I need this giant machine gun. Like I don't understand like the mental gymnastics it takes to correlate like some kids got shot, I need to protect my guns. Or like the thing is, I don't understand how someone does not like see the lack of compassion with when someone says children are dying and then you feel like, well, that's sad, but don't take my gun. And then you say, well, your gun's a problem. That's the issue with me, I think, lately, is I just feel like I don't know how to begin that conversation with somebody.
And it's interesting how many people, like, I know a lot of people who own guns, use guns, and are like, no one should ever have that kind of gun ever. Like, you don't need it. And so it's often like, I feel like, especially when I'm talking with liberal groups, or talking with anyone, but there's this like immediate, like all gun owners are doing this, and there's so many who aren't. And so then it's like, does that isolate us even more from the people who we could be like having these conversations with? I don't know. I don't know. But there's a lot of people who are not.
Wasn't there some sort of study done where they were, I mean, this was in like a communications department or something like that, where they looked at the ways that the NRA lobbied and the way that they, much like the Trump administration, just disseminated misinformation in incredible ways, took the Constitution, flipped it completely on its head, I mean, those sorts of, I've been saying this forever. Like these are long running conversations that have been happening. I feel like, especially among conservative groups, like it's a long game for some of these humans, I feel like, and we're coming to fruition for some of the things that have been in the works for decades, honestly. And I think that guns are one of those things, like a hand in every single one. When we talk about militias, it's terrifying to me because I don't know which ones are going to show up for whom. And when you have a president who's riling those humans and they're like, they're gonna take the presidency from you. Do you have your guns? I don't have my gun. But I also, well, do I need one?
Right. God.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that kind of goes to like when it comes to like the I'm curious if this event at all like established a precedent for like future actions or future like reactions to certain things. So like I this is just my personal opinion, but I kind of suspect that if Trump does get impeached and or if Trump like or like Trump like does win again in 2020 or doesn't win in 2020, I think that there's going to be reactions from these groups that could be aligned similarly to what occurred today, which today was nonviolent, it was peaceful, and there was 22,000 of them. But that was probably for the vast majority. Each one had guns, I would assume.
I was just going to say, like, when we call it peaceful, even like thinking of that line of like setting that precedent, to me, that's still violent. Like, even if
I was just thinking that, you know, like, it was definitely stressful, and I don't know if that counts as peaceful to me.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Was it 22,000 people for gun rights, though? Because I read that some of the people there were saying this isn't how we want our country to look. And so, I mean, I wonder about those numbers. Is this like a Trump's inauguration where 4 billion people came and they were all in the mall? You know, I mean, like, I want, did they take names? Did they have a sign-in sheet? Did they sort of keep track of who they fed? Because until they do, I'm like, really? 22,000 people all showed up with their guns?
Well, they have to collect names because they're working with the Chinese government to track everyone's faces.
God.
So who do we have to call then? I'm sorry, who keeps track of this? The Russians? Is that what you need to? I'm real confused. I don't really know how these country things align.
That's the feeling. That's how I feel. It's like it's not a country anymore. It doesn't seem like.
It was interesting in the Washington Post article. We'll link that. They said that there was officer that while there was no violence, and this is, I'm quoting them. Yeah, my nose did that too. Yeah. There was no violence. Officers did remove a homemade guillotine that had been set up on the street, inscribed with the words, "The penalty for treason is death."
Jesus Christ.
Was that a threat against Trump then?
Yeah, what treason?
See, that's the it's kind of like unclear.
Do we know what treason means? Because I feel like maybe the people who made the guillotine don't.
No, I don't. Yeah.
I'm like real confused.
I have a feeling no. I have a feeling that the people who made that are the ones who are more likely to commit treason.
Yeah.
That should be on a shirt. Likely to commit treason, and then a question mark. like a question mark plays loudly on the shirt. Just maybe.
Treasonous tendencies.
Yeah, what are the
treasonous tendencies? Oh my God! It had like a guillotine. Sorry, what were you saying?
What is treason? No, I was just echoing what people have been saying. Like, huh?
Yeah.
I don't think that word means what you think it means.
No. Just like guns don't mean what they meant when people wrote the Constitution. Like, stuff's changed a little bit.
Yeah, like I don't remember now. Like when the Constitution was written, guns were highly inaccurate, if I remember, and took forever to load or reload. We're not like reliable in terms of like
going off.
Yeah, like you can't just like decide I'm gonna go kill a bunch of people with a musket, because you'd be like, I probably might get one, and then I'll just have to fight the rest.
Well, I'll
They
be
were
gone.
stormtroopers is what it was.
For real,
And
though.
they were like basically toasters, and you would just hope that it would fire off the right way. So I think they would explode sometimes too. Was the other thing. And like in your
You
hand.
still get at least one. That's what you're saying?
So I think that's why like they were like, yeah, I guess you could keep your gun. I mean, what are you gonna do with that?
Yeah.
More likely to get a paper cut than shoot somebody.
Exactly.
Or I mean, get a splinter. My daughter shuts down because she goes to a school where I would say it's probably about half and half at this point for people who are more liberal, people who are more conservative. And so she is in this debate class, and she's in an English class, and she's had several conversations about, like gun control. And it's always, the Second Amendment says, and she always shuts those conversations down by saying, okay, fine, then let's legislate ammunition. And it has never been that these other students with whom she talked come back and say, well, no, because she's like, it's not in the Constitution. Nothing is stated about ammunition in the Constitution. And so I love that she does that. She thinks she's right a lot, which is also okay, I guess. But it's just, I love that she brings that to the attention of these would-be, Second Amendmenters. Is that a word?
Yeah,
it is now.
Oh.
I think also when people, and I think this is both liberals and conservatives, when you talk about gun control, there's never a discussion about gun control for the military and gun control for the police. Because once you go into that realm, like you've become like an enemy to the state.
And the Democrats. Yeah, there you go.
There it is.
You have both parties like in a bipartisan kind of way, just being like, hey, hold up. Did you just say the people that protect us? No, you can't do that. So.
Yeah.
No, but then you could be like, but I thought my neighbor was protecting me with his gun. So why does the police need to have their gun? One or the other has to have guns. They can't both have guns.
Yeah, it's like this weird, like big state fear, but then also using that same logic, like we talked about, like when it's convenient, let's flip this logic around.
Yeah. So the
it's
most.
It's like an arms race of civilians and police,
basically.
So the most paradoxical thing that I see, and I just crack up every time I see it in cars. I don't really see it up here, but it's mostly back home. But it's when they have the libertarian, like "Don't tread on me" sticker, and then they have. So that one's just funny. But it's when they have the Blue Lives Matter and then the "Come and Take It" flag. And it's like, who do you think is going to come and take your guns? Like the state is going to come and take your guns. So you're like licking their boots, but at the same time, you're like, come and take it. Like there's just like a dissonance between. And so I think their argument would probably be like, oh, well, the good cops will not do the Constitution bullshit. But like, I don't know.
It's. Yeah. Like I was saying, like the mental gymnastics are uncomprehendable. I can't comprehend it.
No.
Yeah.
Because like the other thing too is like I know I'm doing a lot of stereotyping here and stuff too, and I know like to your point, like we don't want to alienate people, because I definitely know a lot of responsible gun owners, but there's this weird issue of like I can't help but picture that same person being on Reddit, like being so proud of themselves for having these quote unquote logical arguments with somebody, and yet will have probably these stickers on their car that are seemingly illogical or don't, and again, yes, go ahead.
I just want to push back a little bit, because this kind of goes to what Marx was talking about earlier. Like, isn't that what they want you to do? Is just sort of, I mean, like, what can you define a responsible gun owner for me? Like, what does that mean? That doesn't mean it's so their guns always locked up. Like, no one ever has access to that. I feel like school shootings have been perpetrated by kids who got into their parents' gun. I mean, their parents were responsible gun owners right up until they weren't. Like, so I mean, like, I feel like there are questions that we're just not kind of supposed to ask or push push against because they're just sort of commonplace, or, you know, like, oh, well, you have your guns and you're in the space, and oh, okay, well, I kind of want to turn around and move my bike in a different direction because it makes me uncomfortable. So how do we sit in that discomfort and have other people join us in that? Do you know what I mean? Because I don't know what responsible gun ownership means. That's a simplistic way to ask that question, but you know what I mean, kind of.
Interesting.
I don't know.
And I feel like you'd find that a lot of these same people who, I mean, obviously they show up to these protests with guns, wearing them, like they're going to also be advocating for the open carry type like laws and stuff. It's like they want to be out there toting the guns around. So I think there's like this, like, I don't know, maybe there's like a power dynamic that they're searching for or something. I don't know. I don't really want to psychoanalyze too much, but
yeah. But I think we have to be careful though, in the sense of like, at least in regards to the open carry, because then you have the Black Panthers who like historically, like they need to have that ability to patrol their own communities rather than having like police officers who are going to uphold, you know, state violence, systemic racism against them. And then you have Reagan and the NRA like saying, oh, no citizen needs to have an open carry gun. And then that's why California, you can't, it's a law, you can't do that. So like, I think there's nuance, but at the same time, like, I don't know, I feel safer if Black Panthers are patrolling my community. Like,
at least what you tend to see seems to be like, you know, mostly white men.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, which then we don't do as a group, like as a country. So
yeah.
The anonymous.
Well, that's who I think about. Yeah, that's who I think about though. When I think about open carry and militias, I think about white dudes.
Yeah.
And I mean specifically dudes. Like men. I don't know. I feel like maybe a good man doesn't need to carry around a gun. Yeah, I'm gonna say it out loud. You know what I mean? But like, dude, you know, like those don't tread on me kind of fucking Confederate flags waving on their stupid poles that they've put on their pickup trucks. Again, stereotyping, right? But I mean, like that's what I'm fed. Like that's what I see. That's when I look at media, those are the people that I see. They're wearing camo and they're not in a forest. Like
Lost my pen.
Hey, this is just their Comic-Con. They're just cosplaying. They're supporting the troops with their.
I'm an operator.
I know they make that like sand colored camo. I've seen it. That would fit better. And this is what I see in the media. So I'm as much subject to these sorts of like ideals. Those humans just don't speak to me or for me or around me. And I'm okay with that. But that's what I see.
I feel like I'm not okay with it because they're the ones with guns and I don't like like because they presume the thing is like I feel like they presume to speak for the country and also have guns, which is I think is the most dangerous part, is that they are very insistent upon themselves while also having killing machines on their persons.
I mean, nothing would shut me up faster than someone pointing a gun at me. Really just having a gun around me. That makes me so like just thinking about being in that space with those people who have those like AK-47s. I don't actually know what kind of gun it is. I'm really sorry. Obviously, I'm not a responsible gun owner because I'm not a fucking gun owner. Anyway, but you know, like these semi-automatic weapons, right? That's what they're called. Like strapped to them. Like I don't want to have a conversation with that fucker.
Yeah.
That doesn't elicit like positive interactions between me and said person with. There's no space for conversation there. No. I automatically shut down.
Do you think that, I guess there's like a two-parter kind of going off what you said there. Like in the one sense that like, their protests with open carry firearms gets a different reaction from police than if they didn't have it. And I don't know if that would be like same for leftist protests. And then my second question is more like, do you think that left gun groups such as the Socialist Rifle Association or the John Brown Gun Club, which is also like Redneck Revolt, the lefty groups, do you think that in a similar fashion, like because we don't really see them, that they still kind of apply under those, or is there kind of a nuance?
I don't know about either of those things that you just said. Sorry, like those like the leftist militia groups. Is that what you're talking about?
I don't think they'd initially be like militia, but they'd be like leftist political groups.
With guns?
With guns.
Yeah, so like trigger warning would be like another example, which is about like armed trans folk.
Mm.
And they, I mean, I'm not going to speak for them, but from my understanding, they're more like they feel the need to be armed. And so they practice and have a community of, yeah, what do you...
I think that's like the part where you look back at like the Black Panther movement and you go, I totally understand why people feel like they need to do this, because I also kind of feel this way, because I also generally feel unsafe when I go out in the world. But this is also why I feel like we should just not have all of the guns to begin with, because this is just escalating, obviously. Like, it's clearly just escalating.
It's just like a white man to take something, take the feeling of needing protection from the groups that actually need protection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, like the gun doesn't kill the person, a person kills a person, that whole argument being used. I feel like I'm presented with all these like different camps to align in when we talk about school shooting. And I want to agree with a bunch of them. Like, why can't we, it's really difficult to me that we can't just like do something. Like the paralysis that seems to come from, sorry to use an ableist term, but like that comes from like shutting down the argument of someone who's in another camp. Mm-hmm. I feel like it just sets up all of these like mutually exclusive options instead of being able to openly talk about how it's a little bit of everything and how those work together. Like gender is part of it, like actually having access to guns is part of it, like discourses around what it means to be in a school and a safe space versus like all of this is part of it together. It's just frustrating.
It is frustrating.
What was the first part of your question? You had a first part of your question.
I'm trying to remember it now. I think it was, so in Virginia today, it was a lot of, I don't know if everybody was, but we can probably safely assume the vast majority of them were armed. So you had armed protesters, and it was, so it was armed protesters that were probably more conservative, if not like far right leaning. I think it's probably safe to say that.
Like even the figures that pushed a lot of, like you talked about, the conspiracy type thought behind it. Yes. Like those were all right leaning, if not full.
So we had more like
alt-right and stuff like that.
Yeah. So like when it comes to like that, like the police reaction was a certain way. Do you think that it would be the same if like there was like leftist groups, like leftist protests, but they too were also armed? Do you think that police would have a more like riot gear presence? Would they have, you know what I mean? So the differing, depending on your ideological belief and how it relates to the system, the status quo. Just curious what your thoughts about that.
I think you've seen, go ahead. Lucy, you go ahead.
There you go.
You go.
I kind of wanted another second to think. I know. Okay. Don't be shocked. Don't get knocked over by a feather, because I want to think before I talk. But
wait, what is that? What is that phrase? I've never heard that before.
New thing. I'm like learning and growing.
What does that mean? Don't get knocked over by a feather.
Go.
That sounds like something I would do too. I want to know.
Wait, have you never heard this phrase before?
No,
I've never heard that phrase.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. It works. Like, I picture it.
I still need an explanation.
Like you're so shocked, like I could knock you, like it would.
Yeah, you're like that, like teetering. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I like that. I'm gonna try to remember that.
It's probably wrong. Like it's probably not even a phrase. Honestly,
you're mixing your metaphor.
Luckily, Mark's can definitely get this out later. But,
that's how phrases start. They're not phrases, and then they become phrases.
Well, I'll just start using it.
Spread the word.
Yeah.
I forgot the question now.
All right, so
well, here's the thing. Okay, but here's the thing. Like leftist or like think about all these peaceful protests that end up with being gassed by the police. I mean, like, why? Like, why does that? And then you have did they just not have the right permits? I mean, like, why?
That's it. So like, you have the don't get gassed permit. Oh, good, excellent.
Well, I mean, because to have a big protest, you have to have a permit, right? And so and so that's how, like to have like a gathering of a certain amount of people, like you're supposed to talk to like. Yeah, so that's like a real thing. It's so weird. So I thought that was how, like, the Virginia, right? The Virginia government, right? Virginia, am I right? That's why he said we're gonna declare a state of emergency and not allow any open carry on Capitol grounds, not only because they'd gotten these threats, but because they knew the protest was going to be happening because you filed this paper. Anyway, that's sort of neither here nor there, except that did they have the right permits, and leftist groups are gonna like just go take to the streets and not tell anybody they're coming? Like
you have to schedule a protest? I didn't even know this.
What's that?
You have to schedule your protest?
Typically you do, but then there's something called wildcat strikes, and you just do it.
Can you have like a fair use protest?
I don't know anything about planning,
So like usually when you plan it,
they give you a route, and then like the cops will organize like along the route to give you, and the justification is that they're giving you protection, right? Because they want to protect your First Amendment rights. So what they do is they'll give you like an outline. If you diverge from that, then it's like basically at any time they could be like, this is, what is the term they use? They're just like, this is like an illegal protest basically, and if you don't like disperse, we're gonna fucking beat you, gas you, arrest you, maybe even shoot you. But
right, so they're there to protect your First Amendment rights until they're there to gas you for exercising
if you go
your
through
First
the appropriate channels.
Yeah, if you go through the appropriate.
Please only walk here.
File the right paperwork. Okay.
Do not step out of the freedom zone.
Yeah. Interesting.
You have taken a step.
If you step outside the freedom zone, you have given away your freedoms and therefore are subject to punishment.
Nope.
Is Canada outside the freedom zone, or is Canada the zone?
It's always outside. It's not America.
Oh.
Yeah.
Canada's so romanticized too. I get so tired of it. Like, yeah, Canada has some cool things, but also.
Yeah.
No, I know. But you know what they don't have? Trump for president. So
that is a big point.
It's a big plus. It's a big pro.
Yep.
I think about like leftist protests, I guess, if that's how we're gonna. Does that mean this is the rightist protest to have freedom to carry? I don't even know. I don't even know what these words mean anymore to some extent.
Yeah.
God, it's so irritating.
It's what the thing I always get really kind of concerned about is the posturing that happens on you know, I don't want to use this phrase, but I can't think of another word to say it, but on both sides, the posturing that happens, because I like, you know, looking at history, it's like before, you know, things escalate to a certain point, there is usually some form of posturing and done in different ways throughout history, but it's just it doesn't bring to mind a sense of safety or security going forward, and knowing that we have this reckless president in office right now who's going to probably desperately cling his way to the sea as much as he can, and there are people who are supporting him who are also desperately clinging to their rifles, and then we have people who are desperately clinging, you know, or desperately seeking rifles where otherwise they might not be because they feel like they need that protection. And then, you know, just wondering, like, where does this all lead to? Because, you know, there are people like us having these podcasts, having these discussions, and there are plenty of other podcasts having these discussions and articles and things like that. But it doesn't seem to be working, at least in my mind. And that's the part that really worries me.
But is that what we're seeing? So that's sort of my point earlier to like the media and what I'm seeing there. Like how much of this, we've talked about this before. I feel like all electronic communications need to be shut off for like a month. Because what happens when you're forced to have interactions with simply the people in your community?
Panic.
Like what is that? what does that look like, honestly? What did you say?
I said panic.
Maybe, but I mean, I just feel like when I'm fed this constant stream, like you were talking about Twitter and seeing things in real time and the 24-hour news cycle and moving from one thing to another, and you know, whether there were 22,000 people at this rally or not, like that was a news story that we saw with people in their camo with their guns, and that elicits a response, whether that response is or yeah, you know, I mean, regardless of what that response is, those responses are elicited constantly, like all the time. And so what happens when, you know, if we just, I struggle with that. And like paying attention to the news and looking at things that are happened, and not only having a reckless president, but having one with like zero intellect whatsoever, who has no idea about history or, you know, basic math. And so I just, what am I supposed to be afraid of? Like my next door neighbor? Because my next door neighbor could be the guy at the rally? Or like, am I supposed to be afraid of like these, you know, like this top level stratosphere stuff where like this could happen tomorrow? I'm confused. Like I'm basically confused all the time.
I think confusion pairs with fear, right? Because I think we're fed so much stuff and you don't know what to believe. So you cling to your us group, which gets like more and more radical in whatever direction. And it works for certain purposes. Like
that's a good point.
I think part of it is like I think it's like we aren't really equipped, maybe like mentally, to handle the constant stream of information that is afforded us. And so maybe that's part of the issue, because I also do notice, like with Twitter specifically, there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to things, and that, you know, people just see one thing and then they just react to it. They cling to it like it's the truth, and they'll either attack someone on Twitter or they'll take it into the real space. I think like a slowdown would be nice, like some kind of like slow mode on the internet would be nice, I think.
Like you can't post until 30 minutes later. It asks you if you actually want to post that thing that you just said that you wanted to.
Reconsider your
like a cool down.
Yeah.
We need to go back to dial-up.
Like you get real heated. You get like real. Sorry.
Oh my gosh! Can you insert that dial-up noise?
I want directly correlated to like someone like delivering ice cream. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're like really mad and try to post something like real inflammatory, like somebody just shows up with a treat, and they're like, "Are you all right, buddy?" And like, you know what? I'm not going to post that anymore.
Oh my gosh!
I'd become like such a mean person, but only for ice cream. Just
like, you know,
like some sort of Pavlovian effect that we did not anticipate happening.
Well, and it's so interesting how like contradictorily, like electronic media has become our everyday lives, but it's still not the real world, quote unquote. Like we still call it virtual. We still call it not real. But then what does that do? Like it's become so much of how we get our news and how we communicate, but then we still treat it almost like if you're behind a screen, there's this element of safety, or like you would say things that maybe you wouldn't normally say.
Anonymity,
yeah.
That is really weird.
What is that?
As we all sit here using not our real names, but
right.
My protection.
As we've talked about before, for me that is a safety issue, honestly, because my opinions and ideas could be seen as radical by some, and that radicalization of what I think is just like normal fucking human decency, like a white man in power could be like, oh, she'll never have a job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so
for sure. There's a reality. Yeah. But I feel like naming the contradiction, I mean, that sometimes I feel like that doesn't really help, but that's just kind of what I'm always trying to do, is like, let's just be transparent about how fucked up it is, and maybe I'll at least do something. I don't know. Maybe.
Transparency is really nice. I like that a lot. I think that the transparency probably will help to some degree.
I think so.
Honesty and admitting the even just the confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that happening on social media? Like, do you see those sorts
Sometimes.
of interactions happening?
Maybe.
I mean, I kind of do, because I've sort of like done like social media purge, where I've very, very selective about the people that I follow, and like I maybe this is bad because now I'm like curating my newsfeed in a way, but I like to look towards people obviously who are, you know, think like I do and whatnot, but also who engage with, you know, other ideas in a respectable manner, but also like a straightforward manner. So like because I think I saw something somewhere before where we have this weird thing where we feel like we have social media and everything's open. Like you have a Twitter account and then there's all these other accounts and you can access all of them. It's all just open for you and for them. And so there's like this thing where you feel like you have to communicate with everybody. And it's like, no, like it's your account. It's you own your you know, in a sense, you own your intellectual property of the use of your Twitter account. So if someone gets on there and starts trolling you, you can block them, and you don't have to feel sorry about that because you're exercising the tools that are given to you on the site. And same thing with how you follow people and stuff. And I think there's a lot of people who go maybe out of their way seeking like outrage media or like things like that. Like they want to be upset, so then they go that route. And I try not to. I basically try to keep that to a minimum. So I'm very selective about the people and things that I follow because I want information, but I don't want inflammatory information. And I think it's out there. I think it's just hard to get because it's so saturated with. I mean, like I was saying, like anyone could just open up an account and then just start saying stuff, and everyone has a video camera and everyone has recording devices now.
And this is what's terrifying. I mean, think about your age and like who you are as a human, and you're just now getting to this point where you're like, what?
Don't make me think about that.
But I mean, in relation to our previous conversations, I think about younger people who aren't to the point yet where they're, or they feel like they need to curate their newsfeed, I mean, and follow every Kardashian, which is, I don't know why, for some reason, that's like the worst case scenario for me. But I mean, like...
That's ground zero.
Worst case scenario. In everywhere.
Kim Kardashian is patient zero for all of this.
But, you know, I think about what kind of intellectual, you were talking about like intellectual gymnastics or whatever earlier. Think about how kids don't want to do that. Like that takes time and effort, and they just want to have all the information at their fingertips at all times. And so they're not really thinking about curating anything. So I'm like, what the fuck information are you getting into right now? Like, I just blows my mind altogether. They're getting all those pro-gun ads because they don't know to like block or, oh no, are you freaking out? What's happening down here?
They don't understand, like, when you interact with a person you don't like, that you tell the algorithm that you really like interacting with that person, so you're going to get more of that person.
Yeah. Well,
wait, is that how? Sorry.
Like, oh, it's okay. We like how we try to, like on Facebook, if you post something on Facebook, like I don't know how many hundreds of friends. And so that's going to go to all of them. And so our audience becomes this huge group of mixed people. And I wonder if sometimes that's like a really bad thing, because the way that you would engage in conversation with different people is so different, and that's not a bad thing. And so if we're trying to like, I don't think it's a matter of like, let's never talk with people who don't think like us. Like, yeah, that's important. But we can't try to talk to everyone who thinks differently than us in the same breath. Like, it's going to have to be different conversations. And I think social media makes it so hard to have those like personal conversations where you're actually maybe getting somewhere, rather than just like, let me throw this out and everyone will respond to the same thing. Like, yeah.
It's still deeply impersonal. That's because we're on a screen. Like, I can see all y'all's faces right now, which is nice, but this is not ordinarily how I interact with people on the computer. Are you really? It's like covering his face. Just because you can't see me doesn't mean I can't see you. Like, are we not past that yet? It's fine. Okay. Are you hiding?
Are you talking to me?
How the world works.
Mark looks like he's waiting to say something.
There's just I have a few thoughts, but.
Oh, that's exciting. Go, we're all waiting.
Now I'm on the spot. Previously, go back to Luci about kind of curating your feed. It's interesting to me because that's kind of curating your own, like what you see on it is also kind of how it works to perpetuate some of the like
the bad guys,
like Fox News when you just
and so like these Alex Jones followers or followers of any of these other really even on the left as well, because I'm following like left voices and stuff like that, so it kind of goes on both sides there, but it's just kind of interesting like you're trying to get rid of these voices, but some people are trying to get more of those voices, and it just like I don't know.
And I think also like when you're kind of stuck in those echo chambers that are like, I would to a certain extent say like you've kind of chosen the echo chambers that you want to like kind of exist in or coexist in, you also learn about what's outside of your echo chamber from those that are in your own echo chamber rather than like from. Yeah, so I think that's another dimension, that not saying that it's not true, but I think that you can probably learn more like if Hunty, you said we just turn electronics off for like a month and be like, I need to sit down, share a coffee, and have a talk with you.
Well, and then it's hard because there's the whole like, I don't know. I'm thinking of some like more conservative relatives who will be like saying something super homophobic or whatever, and then you bring up an individual person, and they're like, oh yeah, but they're cool. And so there's this discord of like, sometimes it's cool that you can put aside all of your biased shit for this person, but you're still perpetuating these broader discourses or like broader ways of talking about stuff like that. So how do you have space for both where you don't want to discourage those like one-to-one relationships, but those aren't enough? Like, how can we do both?
Yeah, it's...
I don't know.
But okay, so to bring it back about the rally again, because we're having these conversations about like how we like communicate with our how did they get 22,000 people to come to their party? Because I have a hard time with like a dinner party of 8. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like, how do you?
That's impressive.
I can testify to that. I can testify to that personally. No.
They said, hey, come hang out with us. There'll be guns and no women.
And you're like, yeah.
Which is interesting because,
But I mean, like we're talking about community and like how we like establish these groups. Like how did they get?
Yeah.
Even half, even 11,000. How did they get that many people to show up in one place at one time?
Yeah.
I have so many questions. Was there a Facebook
Because you're kind of suggesting like.
I think there must be like. So I think the conspiracy theory started with an echo chamber of like an alt-right like talk show host, but then there's already like gun control stuff. So then like I think some of these overlap, and then kind of some of these echo chambers kind of connect to each other. And then I think once you involve like, I think you can easily connect in like ideals of like patriotism, and then I think you connect in like militia groups. I think you begin to collect in people who aren't associating with militia groups, but maybe are like super pro-gun and care about that. And then you have like this amalgam of like alt-right militia, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that is actually a really interesting thing. Like how, man, the left needs to get organized.
Well, I think about like, like the women's marches and like, I was in those Facebook groups. Like, I know, like, I mean, are they organizing in the same ways? Is that what that looks like? I legitimately want to know. And how do we disrupt that? Like, how do you disrupt this chain of conspiracy or whatever happens that encourages people to be like, you're right, they're definitely coming for our guns tomorrow. We have to meet on Monday. I mean, like, how?
I think you need to do a PST special undercover edition. Hunty becomes a pro gunner.
Can you even imagine? There is no way anyone would believe it. I would walk into it. Wouldn't matter the group. I would just like write an email and they'd be like, "Oh God, she's using actual punctuation."
We'd have to hire like a couple like people to like train, like give you lessons. Like, all right, no, that's a little like here, wear some camo for this shirt here, and then.
I own like an olive green like jacket. Well, is that? The point is that I don't even have like the clothing that like works for these spaces, let alone like maybe I could paint a toy gun. Because I'm not.
You just get a toy gun, paint it black, show up with the guns, and then just say I really like guns and I really like the color of my skin a lot, guys. Like y'all, and then like. They'll be like, this person speaks my language.
It would all go to shit when I try to reenact that one scene from Boys in the Hood where he's like, and I'd be like, oh, is that not right? Is that not how I hold a gun? Shit, damn it.
That'll be good because that'll play up to their whole like need to be like a knight or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh God. I'm not kidding though. I kind of do want to know what groups though are sort of facilitating these sorts of.
Stay tuned for a special undercover edition.
Oh my gosh.
I won't be able to make it in.
I think if you wear a MAGA hat, then they could.
Show like I'm support like
the Trump rally. They always put like the token non-white people behind, like right so it's the camera shot. But I bet if they panned out, it'd just be all like white people.
No, I got it. I could just show up. I'll wear a MAGA hat and a shirt that says Latinos for Trump, and I just walk in and be like, "Hey, y'all! I hate every time I look in the mirror. I just am seething with anger. That's why I want to join."
Oh my God!
They'd be like, "Did he say seething?"
Yeah.
Get out! We know you're what? No, again.
That's what you'll do, Lucy. You'll go in there, and you'll teach them self-loathing.
I'll cripple them by teaching them self-loathing.
It's a psyop.
It's like I was talking to a guy the other day about sexism, and the conversation ended with him being like, I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk in the shoes of a woman. Like, it's really hard. Like, that's tough. And it was like, that's not helpful. Like, I don't hate being a woman, but yeah.
Then you just walked away.
This was text because we're in this age of impersonal communication. But
like, was he saying like Louis Vuittons, or was he just like, or just like?
Oh, maybe that was it. That could have been it. But I can't walk in Louis Vuittons either, so I don't know. Yeah, it's rough. Sucks.
Yeah, just in general. Yeah, heels. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, my partner has the ones where like you can unscrew the heel and like rescrew it back in depending on like what you have to do.
What? Those are the things?
Yeah. So like they turn from flats to heels. I know. I was like, I wear like the same shoe size too, so I'm gonna like.
Anywhere I wear heels, I bring flats and I wear flats and then I put the heels on and I keep them in my purse. But if I could just have one pair of shoes.
I think you could probably double them as like self-defense things too. Like you like
unscrew them.
I don't need a gun. Women don't need guns. We just need like super pointy stilettos that we can unscrew.
Hold on.
I think I've seen that. I think I've seen
that. Advertise.
Yeah.
Do we want to push on through and we can divide this into like 2 separate episodes, but just do the D&D thing real quick? Or do we want to do that another time? I don't know what people's time constraints are. It's already like 8:06.
I'm good with whatever people want.
I'm looking at the D&D thing. I'm not sure if there's enough time.
We can decide whether like if we do want to do it, like I don't know if we want to like do each one individually and talk about the results, and then there's some pretty shitty things about the stuff, like in a discourse analysis kind of way, or if we want to do one for like a certain person.
I think with time, because I'd probably only have like 30, and just looking at the doc, I think if we wanted to do it at a different time, and then it could even be, I mean, I don't know, it could even be a full thing. It'll probably turn into a full thing. So,
what makes you think that? I'm confused. Are you trying to say like we talk a lot?
Producer doesn't want to do any more.
No.
editing.
I meant like. I think it would be good as a full thing. Just looking at, because we have like each of the. If we go through like each of them, I don't know, man.
Oh, you know,
like RPG stuff in general, they always take longer than you think. That's what I'm thinking of, is anything RPG related.
Y'all are like looking at something and referencing that. Like, what are you looking at?
I shared the doc with you. I'll share it again. I only put that there for reference for depending on if we.
The face, Hunty's face. She's
like, oh, like you're organized? Well, fuck.
I think that's, like with like, when they get the way they're able to get 22,000 people out of these things is because, like, who doesn't love more to hate people than also love bullet points and spreadsheets and managing people's time?
Are you saying that about me because I use bullet points for these D&D character alignments?
Well, I'm saying that basically, if you think of like that manager at your office, and I'm speaking to just the general audience listening now, but the manager at your office or whatever, that's just like a pain in your ass, like stickler for time, keeping track of everything that you're doing. Like, that's the type of person that's like, also I really hate people and I want to like shoot them up. And and I don't know, is that just me just making that connection?
Well, if it's a control thing, maybe like seeing people as objects to be manipulated or something.
That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm saying that like that person who has a need to want to control people, objects, things, because it's like what is a gun if not the ultimate form of like power and control?
A nuclear weapon?
What is a gun if not? So you're saying that a nuclear weapon is that, but a gun isn't?
No.
I thought maybe you were trying to up the gun. Like,
because
actually, nuclear weapons are going to be more form of power and control, clearly.
Because like what Hunty was saying was that if she sees somebody with a gun, she's not going to talk to them. And that's kind of like what they're counting on, is like, I get to own this whole conversation because no one's willing to talk to me.
Did you mean it's a deterrent?
And I wanted to bring this up earlier too. Oh, what was it?
Did you mean it's a deterrent?
Again?
Was that your point earlier then, or?
I guess.
Well, because you said he was talking about guns, and then you said nuclear weapon.
Oh yeah, it's a deterrent.
To help keep the peace.
Oh God. I wanted to say earlier too that I think that the state. I want to argue that the state only speaks and like communicates, I should say, through violence and like the different kinds of violence. And so I'm curious like how that relates to the different group, like, because I think you see it through like economic violence, you see it through like systemic violence, you see it through like laws are reinforced by police brutality. They have a monopoly on force. And it's interesting that like you said, like you wouldn't talk to somebody who is like open carrying. There's like, it's a deterrent. It's also like taking control without saying anything, but it's like inherently saying something. And it's like speaking through a medium that is nonverbal, but controls the verbal and the domination of, speaking through communication of force, of violence.
Well, this binary of peace violence, like that's getting at me too. Of like what, like we talked about, like what do you define as peaceful? What do we define as violent? Because then I think of so many resistances that have kind of had to be violent in some way, maybe. I don't know, but I feel like we need to redefine violence, or like we need to define violence. Like, what do we mean by that, and who do we mean by that? And not to advocate for it, but to like it's used so much, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but that speaks to your point earlier about like fear and silence and things like that, right? I mean, because for me, when you talk about that, I think about what, and this is me just playing devil's advocate for a group that I would like to say I do not understand. For them, like people coming into the country is violent. They're taking their jobs and they don't look like them, and you know, I mean, and so for them that could be like a very like those people could see that as a violence, even though it's a myth. I don't have anywhere else to go. I can't really afford
violence for that, and then it plays. Yeah, you're right. And then it plays on fear, and then the response is violence.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, I guess that like just to address like that devil's advocate position you're taking, like that seems like whenever you scapegoat one group of people as like a problem,
like I think that's like leaning toward that fascist like answer of like the problem or ills of society, and like
agreed.
Oh, no. Yeah, I know, like, we're both agreeing here. But I'm just saying, like, I think I would respond and say, like, when I talk about violence, at least with the context I was speaking, like, it's more like a systemic one, right? Where, like the reason that there's, like, you can be like, okay, so there's, like, this ill chance somebody's going to take your job, but, like, probably not. But, like, what's the larger problem, the deeper, like, context here of, like, we have a capitalist system, and like this whole like rule set is created based on like these economic like policies that like has created this instance where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job to this person who's crossing the country. But it's like, you got to like turn and like see like this systemic like state apparatus of capitalism that is doing this violence.
How do people see that though? Like how are you supposed to make that transparent? Like we talk about how do you make that system is so fucking convoluted and is at the heart of so many issues and societal ills, but how do you like unpacking that has been impossible for literally hundreds of years.
And you can't fucking touch it.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, you can't fucking touch it, especially because of like the older crowd, because the Cold War propaganda, and then like that still like reverberates down like into like our generations too.
I just whenever we have these conversations, I feel better because I've curated a group of humans who I love very much, and also I get so fucking frustrated because the problems are so big, and it's like we can tackle them and talk about them amongst ourselves, and we're like, yeah, we know what the problem is, and then we're like, but how do we let other people know what the problem is? And it's like we can't.
And even when we know what it is, to actually like give up some privilege and like do something. I don't know.
Do you think that there's like a version of us? There's like a version of five of us that's like alt-right versions, and we're just like, well, how do we tell them the problem? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
probably.
Oh my God, that is so scary.
That's really scary.
It's really scary. Like, what are we doing?
And they look just like us too.
Oh my God, like doppelgangers, but.
And their names are just like a letter off or something.
The thing is that I think that privilege thing, I think that living through that is really important, and giving space to others and speaking up when I have these conversations with like teenagers about, you know, like race, and they're like, Jesus was tan, and I'm like, you're assuming that's still white, dude. Like that's still, it's a long, but all these like weird things you're saying, I try to bring some things to their attention, and I say, you know, if a person of color and I were up for the same job, I would want them to have it. Why would you want that? You're qualified. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, and for them, but still, that's like, like the impact is so small, and I'd like to have I would like it to be bigger, and I would not like there to be a doppelgangers of us on the other side of this equation, because that would assume that they were brilliant and compassionate in some ways. Sorry, the viewers can't see me like tilt my hair and be like, "Ha, brilliant and compassionate." Right, exactly.
But if your doppelgangers are like the inverse of that, what's the inverse of that?
See, this is where the D&D alignment thing would come perfectly into play.
Okay,
you and your D&D alignment things.
You said maybe we could use one of us. I've never done it, so I feel like we should use me.
I think you and Lichen should do it, because I think me, Luci, and Marks we've all done that. Yeah, we play D&D.
I'm gonna hate it. I hate personality tests.
It's not.
It is still a personality test. I was just looking at it, and I'm like, what is my relationship? Family elders are expressing disapproval of you to the rest of your family. Do you burn the fucking house down? Is what I do. Is that an option?
Okay, yeah, here. I'm going to just copy this in. Fuck it. We should just do this because it's relevant here. Because I want to know what our doppelganger
I have to go in like 10 minutes, so I don't want to
Okay, yeah.
Save
it for next time.
Maybe.
So can I take the test? Do I wait to take the test until we're do this again?
Like take it live?
I think we should take it live, because then you two can talk out, or we can all talk out, discuss the questions, and then there's only like specific answers you can choose from.
Which already is also problematic.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Wait, okay. Marks has an idea.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about how the D&D alignment stuff is bad?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like that.
But it's also to discover what our doppelgangers are like, because this obviously tells us who we are and who our doppelgangers are.
Oh, right, because if you are a thing, there is an inverse of your thing.
And we can both be both, because everyone's always both. So I'm gonna let go, but it'll be another.
Wait, so I'm not supposed to take it? Oh, fuck. I didn't actually look at what the answers were for that particular question. I'm going to close it now because I'm the kind of person already we know. This might be a question on the quiz later that, if I'm told I shouldn't do something, I really fucking want to do it. Really a lot. Right now. But I won't.
God, I'm going to play D&D with you. Oh, my gosh.
Right.
I really want to play D&D with you. Oh my God. Well, everybody here, but just when you're like, oh, you don't want me to do that? I'm going to do it. It's
I think if nothing else, this will really help to endear us to our audience. So yes, I think that'll be good.
You think that's what's going to do it?
Yes. And also to the other point that you were saying is that one of the things that I personally get from doing this podcast, and that I hope other people get from listening to this podcast, is some sort of catharsis release. At least just okay. Just maybe things aren't better, but maybe you feel better, and that's at least enough to get you up the next day. Then that's pretty good, I guess.
Little
no, I have friends where I'm just so humans suck and the world sucks and we're fucked, and then we're we feel a little bit better, bye.
Yeah.
That's the podcast, yeah, basically.
Everything sucks, play D&D with us.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Hunty's like, do I need a gun?
Stilettos.
No, just stilettos. You're right.
I actually would like to call a vote or just make official that if we do play D&D or some sort of RPG game, that one of your unofficial missions in that character's life is to get some sort of magical stiletto and or gun. It could be a stiletto gun. I don't care, but it has to be.
I don't want to that just sounds dangerous. That's like that teacher who brought a gun to school and shot himself.
Can it be a laser gun?
Oh, I love that. Then we really are stormtroopers. Wait, they don't have laser guns. What do they have?
Blasters.
Laser guns.
Blasters. Is that laser technology? Has anybody ever delved into this? I'm confused.
It's definitely beam technology, but it's not verified if it's laser technology.
The science is still out there.
this is where we had this really intense conversation, and we're all really afraid to leave our houses still. Maybe even more so. Thanks, fucking Virginia. But also, like, we can be like, but what is the stormtrooper technology?
Is the Second Amendment protect beam technology?
Maybe that's the next step. Everything sucks. What do we do? Let's look into stormtrooper technology.
I'm really sorry. I've got bad news. The Space Force is already doing that. P.S. They also wear fucking camo.
Yes, you saw that too.
Why?
So
They're going into space.
So they had a reply to that, and they said that it's because they don't want to look different from their other like soldier patriot people. But then they also said like they're not in space yet. Like, whoa, slow down. We're not in space yet. But like, come on.
So they're practicing in the forest?
I don't know.
I hope it's moon camo.
What do they even?
I bet just because they had extra uniforms.
Maybe.
Actually, I think that's
maybe their other uniforms were at the cleaners.
Like they haven't had time, like like when you start like a new band or something, and you're like, we haven't got T-shirts yet.
Yeah.
They're waiting for us to come in.
And they make up some reason for.
They're just a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Oh.
God.
Thanks for letting me come in late. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I had a lot of technical difficulties starting, so it was rough going.
Do one of y'all want to take us out?
You want me to go? I'm gonna go real fast. Okay, ready? Thank you so much for listening to Public Space Travel. This is what?
sorry. I like delayed. I said yo because I thought you were gonna start off with that. I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh my god, this is never gonna end. Thanks for listening to PST. This is Public Space Travel. You can catch PST Luci and PST Lazarus on their Twitter accounts. They're tweetable. The rest of us are lazy. Thanks so much. Check out our Patronus. Not what it's called. Patronize. Not what it's called. What is it called?
I'm curious.
A Patreon.
Wait, what is it?
Patreon.
Patreon? I want it to be Patronus or Patronize. I feel like both of those are better. Did I mention thanks for listening to PST? This is Public Space Travel. We're a mess, and this is going to go on forever. But we hope that you will join us every single episode. We love having listeners. Maybe donate a little bit of your hard-earned dough. Buck the capitalist system on our, what is it called?
Patreon.
Thank you at PST Luci. Have a great night. Thanks, y'all.
Public space travel.
Don't worry, buddy. You're doing fine.
Public space travel.